But the thing is, these figures have to be encountered for a reason. And that's why I find it so interesting that he even needed to face a shadow figure, because I think either the writers at this point are deliberately using stuff from mythology, or it's just unconsciously being used, and I don't think it really matters either way. But when you're about to give in to, especially in hero situations, whether male or female, when they're about to give in to exhaustion and despair, it's kind of like that go get 'em tiger thing. You know, you need that inner masculine, that model of I'm not as strong as the ideal man I need to be, and that's what pushes you forward. And that's kind of what we have in his fight with Pain, that he's lost control of his temper. And Kitsune once again is out, and it's, causing damage and killing, people who are trying to help, and he has to get it under control. And his father, thank goodness, put a part of his chakra in there so that if that ever happened, he could be there to help him out. And we had that kind of interesting moment with Naruto and his dad. I love that Naruto's first reaction to Minato is not happy. Is it? He doesn't run up and hug Minato. He's like, you son of a... Like, where have you been? And how come nobody ever told me you were my dad? You look just like me. Your face is carved into the side of a mountain. This big! And it's been there. I graffitied your face when I was a kid. And yet, I never put those together. My dad was the Okage? Are you kidding me? Well, he did. At least he figures it out eventually. But he does, and he figures it out in that moment. But this has to be done because, like I said already, most people get to live their whole lives denying the existence of their shadow, which is a good thing. Trust me, we don't need a world full of people walking around facing their shadows. Reason being is that there are only two outcomes from facing your shadow. One, you accept it, you overcome it, you move on. The other is bad juju. Alright? It can take many forms. Madness, homicide, insanity. I mean, I guess madness and insanity are kind of the same thing, but bad things happen. It can't be destroyed, it only has to be accepted, but your failure to accept or embrace it, like I said, negative results. Madness, homicide, suicide, or some form of an ugly fate or death. Think Oedipus. Alright? Needles, eyeballs. Ouch. That's not a happy thing. Oedipus stabbed his own eyes out with needles.
Why?
Because he slept with his mom.
Yeah, there it is.
There we go. He didn't know. It wasn't his fault. But that's why the shadow is without a doubt the most difficult opponent that most heroes have to face. Because it's not something you can fight. It's not something you can point to and say, I'm a good guy, you're a bad guy, and I'm going to kick your butt. It doesn't work that way because you're fighting yourself. You are the bad guy. And so the anti-hero a lot of times is the guy who's already accepted his shadow. He pretty much is his shadow. But Naruto's not really an anti-hero, so he has to face it and he has to overcome it. Sasuke would be an example of a guy who's gone a little too far into the shadow area. That's a guy who, not only has he accepted his shadow, he's pretty much put it in control. Right? When you put the shadow in control, you end up with serial killers. That's pretty much what happens. You end up with people who have no conscience, no emotions, and have absolutely no problem taking you out if you have the doll they like. Or anything else they want. So anyway, because, as I said, you are your own worst enemy, all that stuff. When the hero is about to give in to anger and hate, now, I'm sorry, I don't mean to make this gender specific, but guys, you ever had one of those moments you got so mad that you just wanted to hit the first thing to come along? Like you're so angry, your lips doing the little quiver thing, and you're angry, you're so angry, but as soon as your mom puts those arms around your shoulders, what did you do? You get what I'm saying, right? You go from anger to, I don't know what to do with all this emotion. And that's pretty much what happens here. He's giving into anger, he's giving into his hate, he's giving into the darkness inside of himself yet again. And imagine how much worse it would have been had he not already faced his shadow by that point. Because at this point, the only anger he has to face is the Kitsune's. He doesn't have to face his own anymore. Right? And that's why his mother comes along to say, okay, let's deal with this. And there's this really cool scene where she reveals that she also was a Jinchuriki to Naruto. But that she lived a perfectly happy life, which in his experience, Jinchurikis don't live happy lives. But she did. And he says, how? How were you able to do that? And she, like, why is it that your life wasn't filled with pain and loneliness and sadness like myself or Gaara or any of the other Jinchuriki I've ever met? Aside from Killer Bee. That dude's really got to find a new way to start his sentences. But anyway, what was I talking about? Oh, and she says, love. I fill myself with love. And that's kind of what's happened with Naruto over his life, more in a more slow progression. Because, he pretty much could have gone either way, really. I think that's true with most children, no matter how they're raised. This really has more to do with who is involved with them. And I feel like I'm missing something here. And I'm sorry because I forgot to put it in the presentation. But one of the things I found interesting was that at the end of Jung's book on the anima and its relation to the shadow, he wrote that when you find yourself overwhelmed with hate, fill yourself with joy, and it will burn away all the pain. And that's what the anima is. And I was like, that's a really weird. He wrote it in German originally, so in the English I don't think it quite came across as well. But it was, I thought it was kind of interesting because it was kind of the same thing that's kind of happened here. All right. So what I'm going to do now is let you guys ask questions if you have them, and we'll move on from there. Does anyone have any questions? I'm more than happy to answer. Yes.
So then, out of curiosity, because you're saying pain, who is Madara representing at this point?
Madara Uchiha, I don't. It's as far as mythologically speaking, I almost feel, in a way, that he represents it's kind of a Mordred type character, because there is this, and it's something we just recently learned about, so I've kind of been working through it already. Is that we've kind of learned that in a way Sasuke and Naruto are related. That the Uchiha and the Uzumaki clan have a common lineage. The one went off and you heard his mother has the red hair because she's an Uzumaki. Most Uzumaki Jinchurikis have red hair. And so it's kind of an odd thing, but you have this weird kind of connection. It's the same thing with Mordred and Arthur. Mordred, more or less, not to get too graphic, but Arthur was enchanted, like put under a spell, or she shape-shifted. It depends on what version of the myth you're going with. But his half-sister basically kind of tricked him into having an evening with her, and she got pregnant and had a child. So his son, his illegitimate son, is also his nephew. Yeah, okay. So you kind of have this weird interconnectivity of relation. And so I'm thinking that that's probably the closest comparison I can come to an Arthur figure. As far as as an archetype, I think he's